Back to our economics correspondent Stephen Long. Stephen, we heard earlier that the coalition leader Tony Abbott is not letting up in his fight against this carbon tax, but is Nathan Fabian right when he says this will be very difficult to roll back once it's in place?
I think he is, because once big business and global businesses have made investment decisions on the basis of this, if it's overturned, it will damage Australia's reputation internationally. And I don't know of a government in Australia's history, and very few governments overseas, that have overturned a major policy in this way.
Tony Abbott's got some of his lines already in place, though. This afternoon he said this is all economic pain for no environmental gain. Is he right?
No, in short, no. If the Treasury estimates are right, and of course that's a caveat, but they look credible, you're going to have a situation where the increase in cost of living is relatively modest, and the revenue that the carbon price generates will more than offset that for a large number of households. On the Treasury's modelling, you're looking at more than 4 million households, and bear in mind there's less than 9 million households in Australia, who will receive more than the cost, about 20% more than the cost, out of their purse, and about 6 million who will be left roughly the same. So he's not right, but there's an issue with the tax thresholds, which I know you're aware of, which means that he'll have a very strong line of argument to sell to the public that this is going to be a tax increase.
Well, the government says no one will pay more tax. Are they both right?
I think that they're right. I think that the government's right, that no one is going to pay more tax. But the problem for the government is that they are actually lifting two tax thresholds. And Tony Abbott will be able to point to the fact that the 15% tax threshold has gone up to 19%, and the 30 cents in the dollar tax threshold, which cuts in at $37,000 in income, goes up to 32.5%. So they are lifting tax thresholds, but they are increasing the tax-free threshold where no one pays tax from $6,000 to $18,000 initially, then $19,400. Now, that effectively means a massive tax windfall for everybody right across the income spectrum from those low levels up. Low-income earners lose the low-income tax offset, but everyone else is substantially better off. And unless they increase those tax thresholds, the tax system would become ridiculously regressive. The average tax levels will lower, but the problem is Tony Abbott will be able to turn around and say they've lifted tax rates.
And Tony Abbott is still saying that he'll deliver a tax cut without a carbon tax. But can he deliver that and still keep his promises on a budget in surplus and direct action on climate change?
It sounds like magic pudding economics, and it probably is. $30 billion in compensation for polluters to encourage them to move away from polluting industries, plus tax cuts. Now, they're relying on this $50 billion figure that they came up with before the last election, which has had holes picked in it by Treasury and is not seen by many economists as credible. So no, I don't think that they can, but it will be an effective line of political argument.
Well, of course, as Sabra pointed out earlier, the government's policy is not revenue neutral, and Joe Hockey says that the government's policy locks in a structural deficit in the budget. Just going on the analysis that the government did release today, he's right, isn't he? This package does hit the budget bottom line in every year except, fortuitously, at the election year of 2013.
It's certainly the case that it's negative for the budget. It isn't revenue neutral, it's going to cost money. And so they will have to find revenue measures from elsewhere to make up for the additional cost to the budget bottom line if they want to achieve the surpluses that they've rested their political capital on.
So Joe Hockey's also warning this package will deliver a complex new regulatory system that will create sovereign risks for Australia. Is that a bit of hyperbole, or is he right on that too?
Other people would call it governance. I don't see how you can introduce a regulatory system. You can introduce a carbon pricing system without regulation. You'll need the regulation, and they're setting up independent authorities at arm's length to deal with some of it. That sounds like good governance to me.
Stephen Long, our economics correspondent, thank you.